Were you expecting this? What do you think?
Yeah, I think once Boris Johnson fell by the wayside, she was the natural successor. And he, in a way, is for a good time. He'll crack a lot of jokes, but when the country's facing a lot of huge problems, I could see why you go for the Ice Queen. I mean, those kitten heels have got steel toe caps. She's no frills or thrills with Theresa May, and she's a lot better than Andrea Leadsom, who was the other Tory who might have got it.
Was it the comment that was in the Times about... Yeah. Better place to be a Prime Minister because she was a mother that did for Leadsom?
I think so, yes. Leadsom kept going on about how she's a mother. Great, you know, I'm a father. I don't bang on about it all the time. But she was, well, I believe, deliberately drawing a distinction between her and Theresa May, who has spoken of her sadness that she and her husband couldn't have children. I think it won't make her any less of a Prime Minister. I have a lot of other criticisms of her, but that is not one of them.
But Leadsom just wasn't up to it. That's the truth. She was found out, and a lot of Tory MPs who backed her over Michael Gove, who was the other big Brexit MP, feel rather let down because at the first moment of pressure, when the heat was on in the kitchen, she couldn't stand the heat and she stood down and she wasn't up to it, and I think she was right to pull out. She wasn't experienced enough. She'd never been in the cabinet. She'd only been in Parliament for 5 or 6 years, and whereas Theresa May has been in Westminster for 20 years and the longest-serving Home Secretary for 100 years.
Does it matter that she didn't support Leave? Does that matter?
No, I don't think it does. What you need is a really strong person at the moment. I mean, Phillip, we were talking earlier, I mean, you need a serious person for serious times, and these are desperately serious times. But what she will do in her reshuffle, which is starting now in a way, she will appoint a really solid person who supported leaving the EU as the minister responsible for negotiations with the EU. That job will be even more important, in my view, than the job of Chancellor of the Exchequer. Well, I mean, this is a poison chalice of a job now, isn't it?
It is, because Brexit, Britain leaving the European Union, is going to be such a shock to the economy, at least in the short term. I think long term it'll be bad too.
No, it won't.
Hideously difficult negotiations. Her party is divided, however much they try to pretend not. I also think there'll be a pressure for an early general election, otherwise she will be in Downing Street for nearly 4 years without having been tested at a general election. But she is tough. If they try to mess with her, I'm sure the Ice Queen will give them one of her icy stares and put them back. But you look at her record, though, and she's talking a good game now, but you look at her voting record, and she's actually voted against a lot of the things she now pretends she's in favour of.
She's going to be a real problem for the Labour Party, because I'm afraid to say it's tougher for a man to take on a woman across the dispatch box unless they morph into Margaret Thatcher, who could beat everybody in front of her. David Cameron always struggled when there was a woman opposite the dispatch box with him, if you remember.
Why would he struggle?
Because he was rather sexist towards him. Do you remember he famously said, "Calm down, dear," about Angela Eagle, in fact, who's now running to be Labour leader. He just had difficulty, and Theresa May will be very solid at that dispatch box. And also, to the Tory party's credit, the second woman Prime Minister, and the Labour Party's nowhere near it. The party of inclusivity and all women shortlist, and there's not a chance of Labour having a woman Prime Minister, because Angela Eagle's not going to be it.
You don't think that she'd be?
No, I think Jeremy Corbyn's going to win. It will be on the ballot paper, and he'll win.
There's now talk of it going to court.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know, it is embarrassing for Labour. 116 years, they asked the question, who's be the best person to be leader, and they've always answered a man.
Yeah.
And now that's got to change at some point, possibly the next time around. May not be Angela Eagle, may be Angela Eagle.
You don't think that there's a possibility of 2 women facing each other?
I think Corbyn would be on the ballot paper, because otherwise there'll be all these legal problems, and he'll win again with a big mandate, and that would be a huge problem for the Labour Party, because the party in the country backs him, the party at Parliament doesn't. But so do they have a leader at Westminster and a leader in the country?
It's a possibility rather than a probability. I think the chances are that May will be facing another.
Well, let's get back to our new Prime Minister tomorrow. What do you know about her behind closed doors? She's a private person, that we know. She's very serious. She works late into the night. She doesn't gossip, doesn't go drinking in the bar.
Sadly.
And so...
Because I buy her a drink any time.
So what...
She wouldn't take one from me. She doesn't drink.
Well, really?
No.
What do you know about her?
Right, she absorbs huge amounts of information. She works incredibly hard. She's very good with figures, understanding reports. She's very certain, very assured of herself. Wouldn't be the first politician to be like that. Has a stubborn streak, which isn't always good. And one of the question marks over is if she goes in to be Prime Minister, it's such a huge job that you can't do it all yourself. Can she delegate? Can she trust other people to do the work? Because she doesn't really know much about the economy. She's never really been involved in big public services like education and health. She's been at the Home Office. She's going to be tried and tested in ways she never imagined.
How do you think she'll feel about being called the next Iron Lady? Waking up this morning and seeing those headlines, how do you think she'll feel about that?
Part of her will be a bit flattered, but of course she isn't the next Iron Lady. She's going to be Theresa May in her own right. And the difference, I think, between Theresa May and Mrs Thatcher had a broad global vision for what she wanted to do for Britain: privatisation, the reforms in the city, education. Whereas Theresa May is much more of a technocrat, a functionary who people who've worked with her say she masters a brief brilliantly, but she wouldn't be very good at creating her own brief. Right. She can follow instructions. She's very methodical, whereas Mrs Thatcher had a clear view of how she wanted to turn the country around. I wish she would be the next Mrs Thatcher, of course, because I thought the last Tory woman leader was a star.
Hello, YouTube. For more of the same, just click here. And don't forget, you can subscribe for even more of these amazing videos exclusive to our channel.
Probably having to put my leg on every day, or like waking up and having to use crutches just to go to the bathroom or into kitchen. I think that's probably what I find hardest, because it's what's changed most, not being able to just jump out of bed and get on with day.